Hello, welcome to World History with Miss Cook. All right, let's get right to it. You are going to learn all about the Hebrews and the history of Judaism in all of 30 minutes. Fingers crossed I can accomplish this. You heard it right. Judaism. That's how it's pronounced. Okay, it's named after the Roman province of Judea back when the Hebrews were polytheistic. They worshiped many gods before the first covenant was made between Abraham and Yahweh, or the Hebrew God. So, if you hear it pronounced Judaism, it's the Americanized, incorrect way. And there are plenty of Jewish Americans today, so let's pronounce it correctly, right? Judaism. Judaism is the first Western religion and is the root of all other religions, the Western monotheistic religions, like Christianity and Islam. In fact, Christianity and Islam will be called Abrahamic faiths, meaning they stem or come from Abraham. Okay, Aramaic is also a language of the time period. That is what Jesus, who is Jewish, will speak and use in Palestine or Israel, Canaan, and he will speak in Aramaic and preach parables. So yes, Aramaic is also a language, but a Aramaic faith means stemming from Abraham. So it all starts with Judaism. It's the oldest monotheistic faith. It's the root of all others, and it's the smallest. The densest population of Jewish society across the globe, I would definitely say in Israel, right? That is the biggest population of Jewish citizens, but there are plenty in America as well. And there's about 12 to 14 million globally. Okay, so the Hebrews. Where does this Hebrew name come from? Like you learned in class, it comes from the term Arabu, which meant the dusty ones, a literal translation. Why? Because they are going to travel from Ur. Here is where Abraham will establish the first covenant with Yahweh or God, and he will leave around 1900 to 2000 BC to head to Canaan, that promised land. I'll get to that. Okay, but they were a nomadic tribe wandering around, right, in between. They're going to call it the Fertile Crescent, but at times it wasn't very fertile. And many, societies will be driven out of that area, but it's between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. Okay, so they would wander around. They were nomadic. They did not have a home. A nomad is someone without a definitive home. Okay, and they wandered around the Middle East, and they were actually polytheistic. They practiced multiple gods until this first covenant and monotheism will be established with Abraham and Yahweh. So Arabu means the dusty ones. Why? They looked sandy and dirty from being so nomadic and traveling around as merchant tribe in the desert, okay, in this Middle East. Abraham, he is going to be the Hebrew leader and founder. He's going to be like 99 when this happens. I'm going to have you guys watch a far more entertaining video, Hippies, and you'll do an Edpuzzle assignment that will further go into detail about this story of Abraham and the creation of this first covenant, the establishment of Judaism. It'll happen around 1900 to 2000 BC, before Christ, but really let's use before Common Era. So what happens here? He is going to be the Hebrew leader. Yeah, his wife is Sarah. He's like really, really, really old. I want to say like 99, but again, I should probably have looked at my notes before this. This is all from my noggin here, being a 9-year vet. So this covenant is this. A covenant is a deal or agreement, a promise. And Yahweh said, God is said to have spoken to Abraham and basically said, look, worship me and only me. Relinquish all other polytheistic gods. Only follow me. In return, you will have a home, the promised land, right? You will be the chosen people. And this chosen land will be called Canaan, which will eventually be called Israel, or ancient Palestine. So that was the deal or agreement, right? Promise Yahweh and only Yahweh. In return, Abraham and his Hebrews will get their home, and you'll see he will leave Ur and he will head to Canaan at the ripe old age of like 90 something. So you'll see in the Edpuzzle that goes into more detail if you're really interested in this first covenant. So it is Abraham who will have the first covenant with Yahweh. The second covenant with Yahweh will be Moses and the Ten Commandments, which you'll learn shortly. So what makes Yahweh so different than these ancient polytheistic gods, whether we're talking about in Mesopotamia or Babylon, Egypt, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, even Norse mythology, right? Scandinavia, before they were kind of, that pagan faith, before Christianity will bleed into the northern bits of Europe and convert. So what are the differences here? Yahweh, one God, one and only. Same God in Christianity, same God in Islam. Okay, one God. He is everywhere. Okay, he's not in, or her. They're not in certain areas like the ancient Egyptian gods or ancient Greek gods. I'm trying to think, even Mesopotamian back then, the polytheistic gods, they god of the sea and only the sea. Yeah, Yahweh, he's everywhere. He's always kind of watching. He's perfect. He's fair. He is all-knowing. One monotheistic, perfect, fair, all-knowing God. That is going to be one part of the Hebrew, the legacy of the Hebrews, okay, or the Hebrews' legacy, and that will be a quiz question. Okay, so you can remember that. That will be great. Now, in contrast, right, because you have this column with this kind of westernized Yahweh, this God kind of looking down on the clouds. The ancient gods, they're polytheistic, hence gods, plural, multiple, many. They're going to be human-like. They are flawed. I mean, Zeus, he hooked up with how many? Some were his offspring, I believe. So if you follow ancient Greek mythology, I am sorry if you're offended by this, but yeah, they were flawed. Many were adulterers and drunks. And also kind of, they stayed put. They had their kind of domain or area, hence multiple. Right, God of the sea, God of war, God of wine, art and poetry, God of agriculture, God or goddess of love. Where Yahweh, nope, one, only one, found everywhere, not just kind of reserved to those specific areas or domains of the ancient gods, polytheistic gods that are human-like, they're flawed. Look at ancient Egypt, right? The Egyptian pharaoh thought that their Egyptian ruler or leader was a god. Clearly he was, hopefully guys aren't, this isn't the first you hear this, but he was a human being. He was a man, yet they will revere him as a god. So when I talk about human-like gods, the Egyptian pharaohs consider themselves gods, and he was a human. So that's what the major differences are. I'm going to play this in class. So let's continue. So the Hebrews, right, led by Abraham, they'll make it to Canaan, that holy land, that promised land. Again, part of that first covenant or that deal or agreement, believe in Yahweh and only Yahweh. And there's some more, I'm paraphrasing here. In return, they get Canaan. And so for about 100 years, they will live there very peacefully. Everything's great. The land is pretty, fertile. They're able to grow food, and they're worshiping their monotheistic, fair, perfect, all-knowing Yahweh in peace. Now, what forces them to leave Canaan? Drought. Okay, lack of water. No water, you're not going to be able to grow food. That will lead to famine or extreme mass starvation. So they're forced to leave, and they are going to go to Egypt. And you will see the why Egypt. Now, they could head back to Mesopotamia, where they kind of wandered around, where you have the Babylonians, and you'll have some Persians all the way over here you can't see. Or they could head to Egypt. And at first, when they went to Egypt, they were kind of welcomed. And you will see eventually they will then be captured and enslaved. And yeah, when they are captured and forced into enslavement, you're going to see these Hebrews will stick out so differently than the Egyptians, because these Hebrews were cultural outcasts. They were monotheistic. The Egyptians were polytheistic. The Egyptians were elitist and very full of themselves, where the Hebrews try to live very simply. And so there were a lot of cultural differences. So again, anything that's viewed as other can be persecuted against and mistreated. And that's what's going to happen to these Hebrews in Egypt. Okay. So the examples, we're going to talk about that in class. I already have here some more, visuals here for you. Yes, they are cultural outcasts, and for 600 years they will be enslaved in Egypt until this guy named Moses. And you're going to watch some more videos in class. I will talk about Moses and the story behind him. His mother is set to put him in a basket and send him on his way on the Nile. He is then picked up by an Egyptian princess. His mother was an Egyptian princess, and so he'll be raised wealthy, and he's going to be a prince. However, he has, Hebrew roots, as his father is said to be Hebrew, and now there's a story behind it. So whether you believe that or not, it's completely up to you. So Moses, a prophet, a messenger of God, just like Abraham, he will make the second covenant. Okay, so it'll be Moses who will argue, kind of barter the Hebrews' freedom from Egypt. Now, let's be real. The Egyptians didn't really want the Hebrews there anymore. They were annoyed. They didn't like, they viewed the Jews as other, and they wanted to get rid of the other. And so they would rather just, stick with their own. And so they kind of wanted them ousted anyway. So Moses will meet with the Egyptian Pharaoh, and it is said that he barters for the freedom. And you guys should know this according to, right, the Old Testament. As the Hebrew workers and Moses' people are leaving, the Pharaoh is said to have changed his mind and set out the Egyptian military to go capture Moses and the Hebrews. This is known as the Exodus. So you have Moses and these Hebrews, and it is said that with Yahweh's intervention and power, Moses was able to split or part that Red Sea. His Hebrews and his people, his tribe, are going to escape safely into the Sinai desert, and the water will enclose and flood the Egyptian military heading after them, and Moses and his Hebrews will be safe. This is known as the Exodus. Passover, a Jewish holiday, celebrates the Exodus. In fact, when Jesus was traveling to Jerusalem, they were celebrating Passover, the Exodus. Because remember, Jesus was Jewish. Moses will make the second covenant at the top of Mount Sinai. Remember, now they're in the Sinai desert. You say desert and you know that is going to equal difficulty. So, and I'll talk more about this in class, an extremely difficult life. There's a lack of water, a lack of food. People are going to be starving and dying off. And so it is said that Moses will receive the 10 Commandments from Yahweh, making Moses a prophet, the second prophet we're talking about in class. First was Abraham, second is Moses, third will be Jesus, fourth will be Muhammad. But anyway, going back to Moses, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Moses will receive these 10 commandments, or these rules from God. And why are they so important? Because it's going to keep the Hebrews alive, organized. Okay, Yahweh says, follow these rules. In return, your people will live, will survive, and will make it back home to Canaan. Okay, which will, at this point, because it's like 700 and something years later, it'll be called ancient Palestine, and the Palestinians will be living there, but we'll get to that. They haven't they haven't gotten there yet. So it is so important for these Hebrews, right? That are on the brink of starvation, on the brink of death, led by Moses, wandering around the Sinai desert, trying to make it back home to Canaan on foot. Okay, these 10 commandments keeps them organized and helps them survive. And it is the 10 Commandments where this concept of social justice will come from. So the 10 Commandments, you can see them here. I will not read them to you because this is a review video, and we're going to be practicing them in class. If you are period 3, you will see this is part of the Judaism ethics packet, and this is found in the Exodus. Okay, there's also parts that we'll dissect in Deuteronomy and Leviticus as well, and Genesis. Okay, the Torah. There are 5 books of the Torah, which is half of the Christian Bible, known as the Old Testament. So we're going to talk about these rules from God specifically. You might even be able to make your own rules in this assignment I will have after our quiz on Judaism. So, what makes these 10 commandments so important? These laws help keep the Hebrews alive, keep them organized, keep them believing again, right? Now Moses he's a prophet, he's a messenger of God, Yahweh has spoken to him. And these rules will keep them alive, keep them organized. And these laws, these rules from God, will help create social justice. Okay, and in the book of Matthew, which is the New Testament in Christianity, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So sometimes social justice is called, right, an eye for an eye. Treat others the way you are treated. And again, one of the classes of world history will be working on that ethics packet, and you will see that very clearly in that assignment. Okay, so these are strict and unbending laws. Why so strict? Why so severe? Are there any positives of having such strict rules? Any negatives? Those are some questions on the ethics packet, and we're going to talk about and explore in class. So, social justice. Treat others the way you are treated. Why is this important? Like I just said, right, with the 10 Commandments, it helps organize a very scattered group wandering around the desert. I got news for you guys. Moses will not make it back home to Canaan. He will die on the journey. I think 2 or 3 years before they reach Canaan, Moses dies. And it'll be Joshua that will lead them back home to Canaan. Okay, but going back to social justice, it is so important because it'll help keep them alive. Okay, organize, and you're following Yahweh's code. Okay, these 10 commandments. We're going to really play around with social justice and this concept. Now, you'll notice social justice, treat others the way you are treated, is different than in Christianity, what is known as the Golden Rule. You may be more familiar with that, which is treat others the way you want to be treated. See that little twist? That's the Golden Rule in Christianity. Okay, it is different. Hebrew social justice, historically speaking, treat others the way you are treated, right? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Is that how, Judaism and their, criminalistic justice system, belief system today? No. Okay, but this is a history class. I'm not teaching you Judaism today. I'm not teaching you the theology. We're just learning the historics. Okay? It's really important to plug and note that, especially on the good old YouTube. So, important leaders after Moses. Like I said, Joshua, he will be the Hebrew general that will pick up the pieces after Moses dies on the long journey, and he will lead them back home to Canaan. Now, eventually, when the Hebrews make it back home to Canaan, they will see, right, it's ancient Palestine now, and Palestinians are living there. People have kind of moved in, and 12 separate tribes form. So they separate again. And this guy named Saul will help reunify and reunite them. Okay? You do not need to know about Saul. Joshua, the guy who leads them back home to Canaan, you will need to know. Then comes David. You know David, right? The Israel king who will help establish Jerusalem as their kingdom, right? The kingdom of Israel, of the Israelites, that awesome kingdom. And he does this by defeating the Canaanites, or those people that lived in Canaan, right, moved in when the Hebrews were gone. Because remember, the Hebrews were stuck in Egypt for like 600 years. So yeah, that's a long time. Imagine if you left your home in 600 years, right? Would you expect it to be vacant and sitting for you, just sitting and waiting? Well, no, because you don't, unless you're a vampire, you're not going to live for 600 years. But you get the point. Okay, so it is David, leader of the Hebrews, an important general that will defeat the Canaanites. The Canaanites are those people living in Canaan. The Hebrews left for 600 years. And he helps defeat this fortress, and he will use this fortress and establish the Israelite kingdom with Jerusalem as its capital. Okay, here's a present day photo. Okay, what will happen? Eventually, this beautiful kingdom will divide into two, the kingdom of Israel in the north and the kingdom of Judah in the south, which is a bad idea because both kingdoms will fall. But for a short while, it's awesome. You can see here King David's empire. We'll talk more about this in class. So David dies. He's got a son named Solomon. You know him as King Solomon. He'll be king of the Hebrews, and you can see the time here, 970 BC or BCE to 931. He loses his focus. It's no longer about religion, and it's all about power. Once they have this kingdom, they don't want to lose it, and they just want more power. He will tax the citizens, and it's going to be difficult to pay those taxes. With more money, more power comes more problems. So like I said, this Hebrew kingdom will split. After King Solomon dies, that is when this kingdom of Israel, right, this awesome Hebrew kingdom with Jerusalem as the capital, will split. In the north, it'll be kingdom of Israel. In the south, the kingdom of Judah. Where is Jerusalem? We'll find out. Now, the prophets, those overseers, those messengers of God, those foreseers, I should say. What did I say? Overseers? I can't edit this out. So, oh well, sorry, YouTube. This is me in action at what, 5 o'clock? I'm doing this after school hours. So kudos to me. I just want my kids to be able to watch this well in advance to their quiz next week. So these prophets, these foreseers, these messengers of God are going to warn, look, okay, this dividing into two different kingdoms now, two tribes, a northern, right, kingdom of Israel, in the south, the kingdom of Judah. It could cause you to lose Canaan altogether. And that's what's going to happen. So you can see here in the north is Israel. Jerusalem is in the south. So if you guessed kingdom of Judah, you are correct, my friends. So the kingdom of Israel, up here. The kingdom of Israel is basically going to be conquered by various tribes. Assyrians are going to invade, a whole bunch of others. So there'll be multiple tribal invasions, and it's going to cause them to disperse or spread out throughout the Middle East. Some will go to Europe, some will go all different places. Now, if you're thinking, oh, cool, well, at least Jerusalem's in the south, and they're going to hold on. Nope. The kingdom of Judah, shortly after the north falls, the kingdom of Judah will be captured and conquered by the Babylonians. King Nebuchadnezzar, which is like the worst name ever to spell, he is the Babylonian king, and he will actually destroy Solomon's temple that he spent so much money, taxpayer dollars, taxing those Hebrews on. He'll destroy it, which is really, really sad. So, let's wrap up here. This is known as a diaspora, and it is just one of many. These Hebrews or Jews are going to be kicked out of their homeland, their, chosen land, Canaan, Israel, whatever you'd like to call it, and they are forced to scatter and spread. And sometimes when they scatter and spread, they're even going to be forced out of those locations. So there's actually multiple Jewish diasporas globally. And so you'll see over centuries, it's going to happen over and over. They're going to be mistreated in Roman areas and kicked out. The Reconquista of Spain, you're going to see they're kick out all Jews and Muslims living in Spain and reconquer, right, and make a Catholic-only Spain. And so many Jews or Hebrews will migrate to countries all over the world. Here are the multiple Jewish diasporas here. This is the Middle Eastern, with obviously both the Kingdom of Israel and the Kingdom of Judah falling. Here's the Reconquista. And then obviously here is the Holocaust. And I'll explain why there were a lot of Jews living in Eastern Europe when we talk about the late Middle Ages. So it's time to reorganize. You have now multiple diasporas. It hasn't yet happened. You only have one right now. But these Hebrews, right, these Jews recognize that they need to return to their faith. They basically have lost everything. So that's exactly what they do. They reorganize, they get back to the basics. They have meetings where they meet once a week and discuss and pray, which kind of gives rise to this weekly meeting, right? Whether it be Saturday or Sunday or whatever the day might be, based on whatever the religious group. They'll have rabbis or educators, teachers to help spread their Jewish faith. And instead of calling them churches, the Jewish temple of worship is called a synagogue. So the Jewish holy text is known as the Torah. 5 books: Deuteronomy, Numbers, Leviticus, Exodus, Genesis. I don't even need to read this. How do I know this? It's the Old Testament. It's half of the Christian Bible. And so it is Ezra. Here is this picture that someone recreated. Who knows if it even looks like him? Looks like some really old dude. Ezra will write down the laws of Abraham and Moses, and in doing so, that will help form the Torah, the Jewish holy book. 5 books, the Old Testament. Okay, so yeah, the Torah, okay, is the Old Testament. Half of the Christian Bible is the Torah. So tell me how Christianity isn't an Abrahamic faith stemming from Abraham. Okay, the founder of Christianity is also Abraham. All right, wrapping up my 30-minute time limit. The last slide, and this will be the last question on the quiz. What is the Hebrew legacy? What is a legacy? A legacy is something left behind. Okay, for later generations, what is your legacy going to be on Ludlow High School? As freshmen, what legacy will you leave? When you're seniors, what legacy will you leave? I can't wait to find out. What will your legacy be? So the Hebrew legacy, first and foremost, right? Monotheism, establishing that one monotheistic single God. His name is Yahweh. He's fair. He's all-knowing. He's perfect. He's found everywhere. Yahweh. Okay, so 1, 2, the third part of the legacy, social justice. Okay, please don't just write 10 commandments, because I'd like you to write social justice, which is that justice system that will form historically, and we're going to talk more about it. Okay, this is just a review video. So to keep my time frame, that's it. We'll talk political cartoons and possible topics at a later date. All right, for now, I am signing out. Come back for my Christianity lecture.